everyone, welcome to the Online Tennis Podcast once again. It's episode 39 this time. We're going to cover Monte Carlo. It's myself, Jack, and my co-host.
Yep, regular co-host Gavin this week. How you doing, Jack? Very good week of tennis in Monte Carlo, so a lot to discuss and get through.
Indeed, a bit of a baptism by fire for all those that hadn't played on clay for the last 9 or 10 months or whatever it is of the tour. It was good fun as a spectator. Like, there was a lot of crazy upsets, a lot of stuff to cover.
Unpredictable matches, that's the way to describe it, really. Unpredictable.
Definitely, yeah. Well, let's get through all of them, because there's loads to get through. It's quite interesting. First thing I wanted to start with, basically, is one of the reasons why it was a bit of a baptism by fire in some of the serving stats for Monte Carlo, and I'll explain myself. Basically, out of all the big events, if we take the top 10 active players, basically, that have won their service percentages, basically, how many service points they've won at each of these events. Monte Carlo has the smallest percentage gap, not the smallest percentage gap, so the lowest highest percentage, if that makes sense. So
pretty much there's not as big a discrepancy at the top of the serving stats as there are.
Yeah, I've not explained that well. I basically mean people.
It's closer. The serving stats are closer. Is it like there's
easiest?
There's no real obvious front runner.
Basically the easiest way for me to explain it is Monte Carlo has the lowest percentage of service points won by far. That's all you need to know. But I've based it on the top 10 active players. So, for example, the top server in Monte Carlo won 67.3% of their service points. Second lowest is 71%. That's at the French Open. So that's a whole 4% higher, basically. That gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. That's a terrible advert for me as a statistician there, I've got to say.
I think Zverev said at the start of the week in one of these promotional interviews, media day things, like, why do you think you've not won Monte Carlo and you've won the other two clay court masters? And I think he said he felt the clay was slower, so maybe that's why there's like a lower sort of percentage service points.
Whoa there, Gav. We'll get on to the semi-final. So that is something I definitely want to talk about, but we'll save it for the semi-final, because that will get me going for quite a while. I've got a lot to say on that.
We're going to have a rant, aren't we?
Well, we're not going to have... Well, who knows? Call it a rant, some call it an amicable discussion.
Let's go back to the Labour Cup discussion, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if it turns into a rant. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, people struggle to win service points at Monte Carlo. It benefits some, it doesn't benefit others. One person it did benefit, we can start with that. One person it did benefit a lot is Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, who pulled off the upset of the week. Arguably, the upset of the week.
He's sort of like the perfect illustration of what you were saying about the stats, because I think last season he had the lowest percentage of holding serve in the top 100, something like that, like a ridiculously low stat for his serve. I think Robbie Koenig, to use a quote, he said he bowls the serve in so he doesn't pronate. It's like the waiter's serve if you've got your tennis coaching hat on, not pronating with the wrist, and sort of almost like hits with a flat wrist out front, which sort of doesn't maximise power on the serve. I guess the conditions would definitely suit him, and they certainly did this week. What did the Djokovic? Obviously people were expecting Novak to come through that match, but personally, if we look at it from a realistic point of view, even though he's the world number one, or meant to be the best player in the world, he's not played a clay court match since last year's French Open. So yeah, we're expecting a lot just for him to hit the ground running against Davidovich Fokina, who is a very good player. And I think before the match, people didn't maybe give Davidovich Fokina maybe the respect he deserved, because he's not really, sort of similar to Musetti, he's not had the best results since the clay court season in 2021. So I think people almost forget how good a clay court player he is. He did beat Casper Ruud at Roland Garros last year. So I expected it to be a tough one. Yeah, I expected Novak to get the win, but Davidovich Fokina was awesome.
Yeah, it was. Serves weren't winning 3 points, definitely, so that was taken off the table. Djokovic's serve itself wasn't that bad. Credit to Matthew Wallace, sort of pointed this out. His forehand basically on the follow-up after the serve was pretty underpowered, but it's been a recurring theme for Djokovic. Actually, it's not something that's unprecedented.
And the drop shot in the first set, it's like, I guess when you've watched Djokovic over the past couple of years, I'm just saying to the TV, just throw the drop shot away. Don't.
You think he's clutching a bit when he plays it well. To be fair, he does play it well.
He does overplay.
Everybody remembers the 2020 French Open final, and they kind of cringed. To be fair, which is fair.
Sort of a mini throwback to that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I will just finish that thought though. So the last 6 years, he's 7-6 at Monte Carlo. So at the start of the clay season, he has always been poor. And Monte Carlo is as clay as it comes for the reasons aforementioned. Basically, you have your serve taken away from you. It's all going to be baseline battles. And if your forehand isn't as offensive as it can be, a la French Open last year, for example, you're going to be struggling to win points for free, and Djokovic looked knackered by the end of the match, and you rarely see Djokovic knackered.
And he did. I thought his first serve was pretty good at the start of the match anyway. In the first set, I thought he started off well in serve, but yeah, you're right. He just looked a bit ineffective, which is sort of surprising for Djokovic, and he did really sort of tire towards the end, and I guess that's sort of the lack of match build-up. Again, what a point I keep saying, when players decide to take long practice blocks and don't play as many matches on the tour, they generally don't become return to the tour with much success immediately, because you've got to build up matches. It's the mental and physical toll of a match instead of a light-hearted or even an intense practice session. You cannot replicate what you produce in a match. It's just, you can't. It's just totally different energy. So I think I'm not concerned. I mean, a lot of people were overreacting on Twitter saying, "Oh, it's a disaster" and all that. It's not a disaster. You got to remember that Djokovic didn't really only start to play his best clay court tennis until Belgrade last year, Rome and Belgrade. So
even Belgrade at stretch, to be honest. I don't know. Probably about Rome.
The second Belgrade tournament, really, the one where he didn't drop a set, he dropped one set rather to Molchan in the semi-finals.
I think it was the second one. No, the second one was before Wimbledon, was it not, Gav? That was after the French Open, was it not?
Before Roland Garros.
Oh, so it was. Yeah. No, he played well at Rome. I thought he played well at Rome.
He lost to Carrot 7 in the semis. And then you had Rome, where he lost in the final to Nadal. Then you had Belgrade 2, which sort of raised everyone's eyebrows, because playing the week before Grand Slam is very unusual for him.
For Djokovic, yeah. But it's basically the Djokovic Open, as I was saying to Owen Lewis yesterday. He's got to be there, basically. So even if it's the week before, fair dues. He got broken 9 times. It's the most times he's been broken in a 3-set match. So he was definitely off colour.
He was, absolutely.
And I've got no doubt he can rally for maybe Rome, maybe not Madrid. We'll see. One person I'd like to talk about, FAA, another loss. He lost to Lorenzo Musetti.
Yeah, he did.
Honestly, not that surprising.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about FAA either. I think after, if you watched an interview with him at the start of the season, he said winning a title was such a big goal for him. I think now he's achieved that goal. Maybe he's sort of letting it settle in a wee bit. That he's done that.
That's a bit of a worry. I don't know. You can kind of get a bit lax after.
Musetti's a very good clay court player, and you've got to remember that, especially at the top of the men's game now, there's so many good players. I mean, he lost to Van de Zandschulp in Miami, didn't he? So it's not as if he's losing to guys outside the top 50. So he's losing to guys that are very, very solid players.
Kecmanovic as well, Indian Wells.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at I know people say, it's like 5 defeats or however many defeats it is, but if you actually look at the players and how they played in the matches, it's never good to lose a match, but he's not. It's not as if he's losing to world number 89 or whatever. He's losing to guys inside.
I don't know. Alex Molchan was pretty low ranked, actually. I think when he beat him.
One defeat. I don't know. I'm just not overly concerned about it. I think he's obviously not going through the best of form at the moment, but we've seen this from him before, and he turned it round at Wimbledon and the US Open last year. Remember, he wasn't playing particularly great at the start of last season, and he turned it on. So I think he could just be one of these players that maybe has a wee bit of a down period and maybe a wee bit up and down for maybe the next couple of seasons or so.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried he's going to have a bit of a Hubi Hurkacz clay season like last year, to be honest, and really not be able to find his feet, because he looked lost in that match against Musetti. One of the main reasons for me is the lack of kick serve again, not able to do anything in his second serve to really trouble his opponent. We saw Musetti doing the exact opposite to Felix, and he just had no way of returning consistently well to trouble Musetti. Getting it to Musetti's backhand is a tactic, but honestly, against the one-hander, you've got so much variety, and if you're looking lost in the day, you can look a little bit flummoxed, basically, and that's kind of what Felix looked like for the majority of that match. He played a good second set, but nowhere near good enough to win the match. So I'm kind of worried about him for the clay season.
Well, yeah, maybe for the clay season, but you got to look at it. I think that was actually one of Musetti's best matches for the past year. I mean, certainly from when I've watched him, I thought he was excellent in that match. Maybe the one against Baez yesterday as well that he won in Barcelona. But yeah, look, I think Musetti's a very, very strong clay court player. We know that. Felix maybe not the best on on the clay at the moment, but he has reached an ATP 500 final on clay before.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'll find his feet again. I'm not overly concerned. He's got Tony Nadal in his corner, great coaching team behind him. He'll figure it out. Maybe not for the clay court season, but maybe for after that. We've still got a long way to go in the season.
It's a shame we've got a long way to go in the clay season as well. It's a shame
Mm-hmm.
to sort of say that he might be off the grid for the clay season, but that could well happen. I haven't seen top 10 tennis from him since Marseille. I would say it's been a while, so it's a little bit of a worry. But yeah, hopefully Tony Nadal rights the ship a bit. Mm-hmm. Next one I'd like to talk about, and probably the only contestant for biggest upset of the week, besides Djokovic, I mean, is Carlos Alcaraz's loss to Sebi Korda.
Yep.
How much of that match did you see?
Quite a bit. Yeah, it was a mess of a match.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm glad you think
like,
that, because it was not high quality.
Sort of referred to like a court 7 match at Nones, like with the courts, so like you can't get your rhythm at all.
It was quite windy, in fairness to them.
I did find it very interesting how people were pushing the narrative of, this is Alcaraz's first match in clay for a while. It's not. He won in Rio. He won the ATP 500 in Rio. I know people don't tend to watch tennis for low of thousands at times, but he did win an ATP 500 in clay.
Yeah.
Plus, he was not playing in clay before the season. For me, I don't know. He didn't play his best tennis. It was very windy conditions. People were talking about the wind that day, in particular at the start of the week, making it very difficult. I just don't think he played particularly well. He didn't play anywhere near his best. But then again, people forget he has just won a Masters 1000, and immediately we're expecting him to win the next one. It's like, well, calm down. He's won a Masters. That's going to take a while to get used to. Yeah, he had a wee bit of time off after winning that Masters. He's maybe not, whereas other players have been playing in the clay for longer. You bear in mind that Korda got knocked out by Nadal at the start of who did he get knocked out to? Actually, in Miami, Korda. That was in the Wells Nadal.
Testing my memory there, Gav. That's tough. Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think Korda's probably had more preparation time on the clay as well. If you think about it, Alcaraz has he played in Miami, won that, and he's not had much of a turnaround. And he's just won a Masters. Give the guy a break. He didn't play particularly well. Windy conditions. Korda's, I thought, handled the big situations in the match better. But again, Alcaraz's attitude after the match was very good. He's like, it's not a disaster. Roll on next week.
I think he said nobody died or something like
nobody
that.
Nobody died, yeah. That was. I think people in there, it's quite funny watching.
Quite blunt for an 18-year-old. I like it.
Tennis Twitter overreacting over, a guy that's just won a Masters losing an opening round. It wasn't as if he got duffed up love and love. I mean, he did take it to 3 sets.
So, I mean, it was against Sebi Korda as well.
It's a classic case of people needing to calm down and give the guy time. I mean,
observing him, I would say I'm going to add to what you just said there, because I think the transition from hardcourt to clay is an underrated one, given Monte Carlo. Again, it's as clay as they come. You are not going to win points with the serve +1. You're not going to win points by blasted aces past your opponent. It's always going to be a grind on the bigger points. Alcaraz hadn't been playing clay court tennis the last couple of months. He'd been playing hardcourt tennis for the majority of Miami and winning consistently with tried and tested patterns of play. There was times where he looked like he wasn't able to change defense to offense in the same way as he was in Miami, and it kind of looked like he didn't know when to tee off on the right balls. Some forehands he was just going absolutely massive on, drop shots. I don't think I saw him play at the wrong drop shot once in Miami, put it that way. And it's like, I think I saw about 10 literally in Monte Carlo. So he was just playing a completely different game. It almost looked like Korda, like if the drop shot worked so well because people were standing so far back, and in Miami it's not the same in Monte Carlo when you're not able to absolutely kill your forehand. Maybe it all stems to that. Alcaraz wasn't using his forehand in the right ways on a clay court. I think the other tournaments will be a little more forgiving because they're a bit faster, certainly Madrid, Barcelona as well even. So I think Monte Carlo is probably a flash in the pan, but he looked lost and confused. He still managed to take a set. So
I mean, he still showed a good attitude and everything, and I don't know, I don't think he played his best stuff, but equally, I mean, he has won on the clay this season in Rio. We know how good a clay court player he is. He's going to take, I think he just needs a build up of matches. Give him a bit of relief after that first one. Give him a bit of slack because he did win a Masters. So, no worries. I'm not concerned about it at all.
He still had his chances as well, actually. But,
exactly. Yeah, he still was very competitive despite playing poorly. So.
Yeah, exactly. 48 unforced errors. Just that's the stats to take away from that. It was pretty mad. I would also like to talk about another player who looked like he was kind of playing hard court tennis on a clay court. Ironically, Casper Ruud looked like he was nowhere near his best against Grigor Dimitrov.
He
I
was
thought,
awful against Dimitrov.
what's that?
Absolutely awful. He was awful
Yeah,
against him.
he was pretty
And
awful.
this is what's so frustrating about Casper Ruud, because this was a great chance for him to win a first Masters 1000. You could have the day before Alcaraz gets beaten. I know people say, well, Tsitsipas on it, but we know how good Ruud is on clay, and semi-finalist last year. And I saw when the draw sort of opened up a wee bit on that side, I thought this is a great chance for him. He's got to, take his opportunity, and he was just dreadful against Dimitrov in the first set. Absolutely horrendous. I mean, sounds harsh, but I mean, if you watch it, if you've seen a lot of Casper Ruud's matches, dreadful. He kept it to the Dimitrov backhand. Never once really challenged the forehand. Was not very good at opening up the court or opening up angles for him to try and potentially punch holes in. He was just all over the place tactically.
Again, it almost looked like he wasn't expecting some of his serve to come back because he'd been using that slice serve out wide constantly.
Was hitting the one hander very
in
well.
Miami.
He's got to adjust. You know what I mean? So it's like he just didn't.
Yeah, totally. I totally looked like he was suffering transition pain for me as well. Like you can blast the backhand all day in a hard court with that sort of forehand, but on a clay court you got to be able to spread the court, maybe even show a little bit of variety. And when he did try to vary it up, to be fair, Dimitrov had pretty much every answer in the book. So obviously it was one of those Dimitrov 9 out of 10 matches where it is pretty difficult to.
Was excellent as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of screwing with him. And obviously, like Ruud's backhand on a clay court. But it's normally fine. He can normally cover it really well. But he looked like he was playing it on a hard court, basically, and expecting to get a weaker ball back than he was getting, sort of thing. And he just looked totally all over the place. It's totally ironic, given everybody's been talking about Casper Ruud as a clay court player for the last 2 years. But honestly, he's made so many improvements in hard courts. Yeah. It looks like he was more comfortable on that surface the last few months than there.
Yeah, I mean, he's been playing more hard court tennis over the last few months, but I mean, he did win 3 clay court titles in a row. Was it 3 or 4? I think it was 3 in a row, post Olympics. And he chose to play in the clay courts over the hard courts of the Olympics. So I mean, I think he probably prefers the clay, but just goes to show again, yeah, he's a great clay court player, but he's not been playing that much clay court tennis this season. He had to pull out of Rio, remember, because of an injury, so he's not really played any clay court tennis this season. So
yeah.
Shows you the big discrepancies in the surfaces, and even the great clay court players, it takes some time to get used to it.
Yeah, I think also service variety is massively underrated at Monte Carlo because you're not going to win points by serving 130. Well, unless you're Hurkacz. Honestly, Hurkacz served like he was serving all year. That's the only player I would give exception to here. Casper Ruud could have done with a bit more variety in his serve. Look at Dimitrov. Dimitrov's kicker. Dimitrov's like slice serves. He's one of the best at it, honestly. And I think it is a reason for this stat that might knock you back, Gav. Third highest of active players to have played at least 3 times in Monte Carlo in service points won. He's got the third highest amount of service points won.
He plays very well in Monte Carlo. Yeah, it's a good place to play well in as well.
That's a crazy stat though. That's like higher than Rafa. Obviously, Rafa's not the biggest server, but it doesn't matter. He's obviously Monte Carlo king. So.
Well, we know how good a player Dimitrov is. It's just a shame he doesn't show it more often because, like, he's he's got a lot of tools in his game that people don't realise or casual tennis fans don't, respect. Or...
It's just surprising that Monte Carlo he's got this variety in serve to develop Monte Carlo, but it's not that is not something I would have clicked with me at all. Like
being that high up, in the serve stats,
it's surprising. Anyway, it was almost like Federer-esque v Casper Ruud. It just looked really smooth sailing. I don't know if he got broken. I can't remember.
He did get broken. Yeah, there was a wee bit of a wobble where you think, "Oh, come on, Grigor," and he kept it together.
Just the one break.
Just the one break, I believe. Yeah, he was a double break up in the first set. He got pulled back to one break. That was
right. Okay. We are going to move on to matches that weren't so easy, some of the drama that happened throughout the tournament. This was the first time since the 2014 Toronto Masters that every quarterfinal went the distance. Dimitrov also won his quarterfinal then, actually, notably, in a third set tiebreak via Anderson, so also in a third set tiebreak. That was when Tsonga won. Obviously, we'll remember that. R.I.P. Tsonga. I think the first quarterfinal I wanted to talk about, one of the most dramatic, was Zverev v Sinner.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? That was a good match. It was a good match. It was a good match.
It was a good match. For me, the Zverev serve, maybe having that big serve made a wee bit of a difference. We know Sinner's improved on the serve, but I think in terms of the serving, I just felt Zverev was maybe a wee bit more effective. But it's funny, Sinner hadn't played his best tennis the whole week. You know, he seemed to wait until he was like a set and a breakdown before waking up. Remember in his first couple of rounds against Coric, for example, where he was like proper pumped, animated. I thought it was almost like watching a completely different person on the court compared to what we're used to. You know, when he was proper fired up. Like
I can't remember if I was saying that I think I was saying it this week, but yeah, I was like,
he was proper like.
I've missed this intensity. It's amazing.
Using the crowd like to full advantage. And obviously, it's near San Remo, where in Italy, the Italian border, so he was like properly getting pumped up.
Yeah.
And then against Rublev, he did the same thing.
Rome will be awesome. Rome will be awesome. Just FYI, just continue. Yeah, sorry.
Rublev sort of did a wee bit of a Rublev in recent times. I don't know what he was doing. Being honest, after being a centre breakup, I just don't know what
he can get a wee bit. He can get a wee bit despondent sometimes. Definitely,
it's just so disappointing. But fair play to Sinner. He's such a good attitude. It's like he never gives up. He's so bloody stubborn. I mean, he's sort of similar to Schwartzman in that way. Schwartzman this week, even in Monte Carlo, never gives up. Always makes you work hard for every single point. Great rally ball, great tempo, knows what he's doing tactically. And I think that match was great, but I just think in the big moments, Zverev was a wee bit better, which
tiniest bit better.
Certainly
really
not
much.
The semi-finals for Zverev, but in that match, yeah, he was just a tiny bit better.
At the same time, Zverev was like, the second serve was still a joke, man. Up a break in the third set, there was a point Zverev missed an underarm serve on game point, followed by a 66-mile-an-hour missed second serve to hand over the break again.
I mean, I don't really want to talk about Zverev until the semi-final, until we like probably go on to that, because I'm going to have a wee bit of a rant, because I was so pissed off. Unfortunate.
I know, it's ridiculous. In fairness to him, gonna have to give him a bit of credit where it's due, unfortunately, because in the tiebreak he was pretty good. He nailed the backhand down the line. That made 2-3. That made a massive difference. Sinner missed one forehand inside out at 5-0. That was kind of the only difference for me, basically.
Just bizarre was Zverev. 1 minute he's like Nito ATP finals form, and he's serving bombs. Next minute he looks clueless at times. But
yeah. What do you take? What's your take on this take from, I think it was Annabelle Croft? I don't want to throw Annabelle Croft under the bus if it wasn't her. Probably Grigor Dimitrov, to be honest. But what's your take on it anyway? They said basically Jannik Sinner was spurred on by Carlos Alcaraz's success, and it has made him a more successful player this week.
I mean, it's a difficult one. You'd really need to ask the player's opinion. For me, yeah, I think the Sinner-Alcaraz rivalry will be a great one, but I think also, I mean, Sinner was making improvements in his game from Monte Carlo plus last season. Yeah, maybe it's made him improve a wee bit, but I think maybe it's a new voice in his coaching corner that's rejuvenated him as well. I mean, you've got to remember that when you get a new voice in your coaching corner, maybe the coach is telling him to be more expressive on the court and use the crowd to his advantage. It's not very Piatti-esque, is it? I mean, Piatti was all very much calm, methodical, whereas now he's sort of turned into a bit of a emotional roller coaster during matches, as it seems from this week.
I love it. I love
it as well. It was great. It was just totally random. Caught me off guard against Coric. I was like, wow, who's this? You know, like I was literally, using the crowd to.
It's interesting actually, because I was going to make the argument basically, tennis players are generally pretty insular. They don't pay attention to what's happening in other people's lives. They wouldn't pay attention to, for example, Alcaraz being successful or unsuccessful to spur them on. However, having said that, your point there about Jannik Sinner now being a very expressive character, he used to be pretty stoic on court, didn't really say much at all. Maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe he is actually looking for external sources of motivation, sort of thing. You know, and he is actually using other people's, I don't know, success or lack of.
I think Alcaraz is so close to him in sort of age and sort of like where they are. Maybe they played a lot of juniors. You know, I think was it like Sinner played him a few years back, and he was like 2 years younger than him, Alcaraz, and he was like the only player who was younger than Sinner to beat or something at that time. So I've heard that story numerous times I can't remember who tells it, but maybe that does give him a bit of extra motivation, but it could just be the new coach as well having influence.
It's probably on him, that. It probably is that. Yeah. But I thought it was a bit of a silly take overall, to be honest. Generally, tennis players keep their heads down, and otherwise they wouldn't be in the top 10 in the world. So, like, if you started paying attention to everybody else, so Yeah, next one I'd like to talk about Hurkacz v Dimitrov.
Yeah.
Dimitrov, yeah, obviously made the semis with some amazing play against Ruud and Hurkacz. Hurkacz getting to the quarterfinals of Monte Carlo full stop was a pretty massive achievement for me.
It was.
He
was not particularly good against Hugo Dellien in the first round.
Yeah.
Match played. I mean, that was a bit of a mess, especially towards the end. I mean, Dellien had I think he had like 3-4 breakpoint chances when Hurkacz was serving for it to get back into that set. And I thought had he broken there to get it 5-all, it would have made it very interesting because Hurkacz looked tight, sort of nervy, sort of pensive at times. He didn't look fully comfortable, but he has got that big serve, as you say. I mean, he does serve bombs, especially in Monte Carlo. He seems to be effective.
He does, but and that is literally why he got through, or he almost got through against Dimitrov. Like his serve is ridiculously good. I used to slate it actually because it wasn't as big as it could be, and now all of a sudden it's like he places it incredibly well for somebody who's got a decent baseline game as well. The only problem is, and it's what you have talked about in the past, and I've got a pretty good stat for you, Gav. The return is getting to the point of being sad for a top 10 player because, and I've got a bit of a this stat will back this up. So he lost in a match tiebreak, or a third set tiebreak. Sorry, you probably are aware, possibly you might not be aware, that he's lost his last 6 match tiebreaks or third set tiebreaks again. Keep getting them mixed up.
There was one in the ATP Cup, wasn't there, against Bautista Agut?
I'm pretty sure it was Medvedev in Canada, Djokovic in Paris, RBA in Australia, Rublev in Rotterdam, and I'm missing one.
Dubai, was it? They played in Dubai.
Dubai. That was it. And then one other one as well. I think Dimitrov again in Indian Wells. So throughout those 6 tiebreaks, Hurkacz has won 2 return points.
I mean, it's funny, people say, but he plays a lot of doubles and, that should help his return, but people forget that doubles use the full court. You've got the freedom at the tram lines as well. That makes you a wee bit looser, I guess, and, you've got more of the court to aim for at times. But yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this before. He needs to improve his return, and until he does that, sort of similar to Tsitsipas and faster surfaces, he needs to develop a chip return. Until they do that, they're not going to be winning the big titles on that surface. They're just not.
For me, it's not the first serve return, actually. It's more the second serve return. So the one you can be aggressive on, the one you can step into the court.
The backhand side.
Yeah, exactly. And actually crunch, he's not doing that at all. And that's just having watched back those tie breaks. Maybe it's when he's tight. Maybe he does it a little bit more when he's in a more comfortable situation. But certainly in those tie breaks, he didn't take any of them on. And he definitely went on to pay the price. I'm pretty sure the 2 return points he won were unforced errors. Like one of them was a Dimitrov drop shot missed or something like that. Other one I think was Djokovic's backhand sailing long, which is obviously a very, very massive rarity, and he should have capitalised. It's just a shame to see because he's such a good player, and that's like the only thing really. Obviously, his 2 ground strokes could do with a bit of beefing up, I guess, in general, and maybe that's why his return's not so good. But it's a shame because he served for the match in that match as well.
He did.
Had a very good chance. It's a shame. I would, hopefully just, if he's going to do well in clay and it's just because of his serve, fine, fair play to him. I hope he does well, but he's going to struggle definitely to get deep in tournaments. Right, on to Dimitrov's match against ADF. That was a bit dramatic as well. So it's still in the drama category.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I didn't really see that much of this one. So you have to take the lead in it. But from what I heard, Dimitrov had chances, was up in the match, and ADF I think raised his level. Was that the case, or was it just Dimitrov playing poor? I heard it was one of the worst matches of the week in terms of.
It was a bit up and down. There was some.
Jose Morgado, I think it was a bit dramatic, saying it was rubbish and all that.
It wasn't rubbish. It wasn't rubbish, but so raised his level. Down love 2 break point in the third set. ADF threw in an underarm serve to save the double break, basically. It's not, I was saying this yesterday again, it's not really indicative of him throwing in the towel because he has done this before in the biggest moments. He did it against Casper Ruud last year at the French Open. I think 6-5 break point down. Basically got him to his first quarterfinal at the French Open. So it's not just a sort of it is a spur of the moment thing. I'm sure he just feels it, but it's not something he hasn't practiced. I'd say that he's actually pretty decent at it. it did win on the point, so fair dues. Had Dimitrov on the floor. So yeah, I mean, it's still a good play. At the same time, yeah, ADF can be a little bit roller coastery. I'll say that, a bit up and down. So it can maybe look like he's just kind of like, no, I've had enough of this match sort of thing. But I don't see it that way. Definitely, I think, yeah, it worked in his favour massively. So fair dues. Dimitrov now, 9 semi-finals in a row lost.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it? The last final he made was Rotterdam 2018, I believe, was it?
That sounds right, yeah. Federer, he lost.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know, with Dimitrov, he's got a lot of talent, but I just question the mentality and the tactical sort of knowledge at times. I mean, I'm surprised that he's not done more in the game, but yeah, that's the way it is, isn't it?
I mean, he looked quite sound tactically. I thought this week he just
this week, yeah, but like,
he just
over
has
the past 2 years.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Played his best, and
I just think maybe a bit of mental fatigue at the latter stage of tournaments. Definitely, kind of runs out of steam a little bit. He definitely, when he plays his best, he's amazing. But doing that for 5 matches in a row is particularly tough for him because he raises his level pretty high when he plays well. So, kind of like Federer, but just with an ounce less talent. Like literally nothing. Obviously, not much, but enough to make the difference. Definitely. So ADF hadn't made an ATP final before that. Did go on to make his first ATP final, and it was a Masters tournament, which is pretty cool. But the biggest story probably for me is the guy on the other side of the net, and we'll talk about his quarter final first because that was a bit as dramatic as they come. Stefanos Tsitsipas v Diego Schwartzman.
Crazy match. Crazy.
Up 6-2, 5-2 against Schwartzman in the second set. Lost 9 of the next 10 games.
Schwartzman was playing garbage for the first. Well, how many games is that? That's 15 games in a match. Schwartzman was playing garbage. And then all of a sudden, Schwartzman woke up, and it was such a strange match. Honestly, it's difficult to sort of find the words to come up to describe it. It was just batshit crazy. It was like one of these club matches you see at times, when you see players go up and then they dip and then another player takes advantage. It was just mental. But having said that, when Schwartzman was a double break up in the final set, I still thought he doesn't get enough free points in his first serve, and I was still saying this is not done. Guy I was watching it with said,
I thought it was done. To be honest,
I didn't.
I'll tell you why I thought it was done. Because I knew Tsitsipas didn't have a very good track record from a breakdown in final sets.
Yeah, but for me, Schwartzman just wasn't getting enough free points in his serve. He's sort of gonna have to work for every point. If Tsitsipas got into one of the service games and made him work harder and harder to win points in his serve, I thought he could come back. Didn't think
I
knew. Do it, but I thought it was like 80-20. So 80% Schwartzman. But that 20% strong sort of 20% that Tsitsipas could come back.
Okay, if there's one guy you're going to rattle off free breaks against, obviously Schwartzman's the guy on clay, fair dues. But I mean 40-30 down 4-love. I think Tsitsipas threw in like a down the middle backhand approach that Schwartzman missed a forehand on. That to me looked a little bit tired. However, to then win the next 6 games, I mean, the level after that was amazing. I think he kind of recognised he'd got a second wind and he raised his level.
And he did a nice Boris Becker volley impression as well.
Oh, that was amazing. Mental. Still not over that shot. That was absolutely brilliant. Like, it was so good. Yeah, fair dues, obviously.
Crazy good.
Credit to the guy on that one. Absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I have a little bit more on what I was saying there. I didn't know these stats specifically before going into the match, but I did kind of have a feeling that he wasn't amazing at comebacks. But he has never come back from a double breakdown prior to this match in a final set. So this was his first time doing it. I didn't know it was unprecedented for him, but at the same time, I hadn't seen Tsitsipas in that big a hole and climb out of it. Credit to the guy, to be fair. Like, normally when he has to close out matches in straight sets, he's amazing at it, sort of thing. He has had a little bit of a track record the last year of maybe having leads in final sets and losing it from there, to be fair. That'll take a while to just completely rid himself of. But generally, he's pretty clutch from positions ahead, but from behind, not so much. So to see him pull it off, and with diving volleys like that, amazing. So good. Yeah. So really good match for him, and I think obviously it was the catalyst in the end. The fact that volley was like almost like a tournament winning volley in some ways because he could have got broken there, and it might have been,
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I mean, absolutely mental.
It was so good. Yeah, then a tidier match for them. I'd like to talk about him and Zverev.
Oh, yeah, can't wait to get into this. I mean, that was a disaster for Zverev. Absolutely dreadful performance. Not hitting through the ball and the ground strokes. I mean, I think the amount of times I was yelling at the TV, hit the ball, hit through the ball. He was just playing loopy, almost pusher style Saturday afternoon. What you'd maybe see walking past your local park tennis. It might sound harsh, but generally, if he's a professional, you deserve to be able to make these observations. Yeah, he was getting nice, maybe loopy depth in the forehand, but I mean, he's not winning any points doing that. Not going to win big points against the best players doing that. Not aggressive enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really, really disappointing performance in the serve as well. To get broken 3 times in the first set with his serve, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it's almost unfathomable, really, that his serve. And we know Tsitsipas is a good clay court player, and we know that he's good in the clay court return. Well, it's his best surface to return on, but Zverev should not be getting broken 3 times in the first set.
Yeah, fair enough. They were all coming back, and yeah, you're right. I don't think it was the serve though. It should have been winning the points outright. It was what he was doing after that, and he couldn't do anything after it. But really, he couldn't give himself any advantage on the forehand.
So passive.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that, to be fair, is how well Tsitsipas was playing when Zverev came forward. So I mean, if Zverev hit a massive forehand approach, Tsitsipas's slice was on fire. It was so good. Like his ability to keep it low.
Tsitsipas played very well. He was phenomenal. But like for me, it was like an overhead, for example, that Sasha didn't put away, and Tsitsipas wins the points. Like, just hit the ball, put it away. Especially in the forehand, he's not swinging through the ball. He's not hitting through the ball. He's just looping it up. Like, it's as if he doesn't. He really does struggle from that sort of transition from defense to offense. He really does struggle to find that balance in matches. And very disappointing for him, defeat for him. I thought it was going to be much closer. I still thought Tsitsipas would win, but I thought it would maybe be a tough 3-setter because I think he did get through Sinner, and he did play okay. And he didn't play his best, but he beat Del Bonis in the first round. Del Bonis is a good clay court player. We need to remember that. So I expected more from Zverev. That's a very disappointing defeat.
Yeah, it looked maybe quite timid for a semi-final of a Masters tournament.
It was timid, especially towards the end.
Mm-hmm. I still think, Tsitsipas played amazing tactically and, totally deserved to win. Maybe even if Zverev had been playing a little bit better for sure. But yeah, I mean, it was what you were saying before the pod started, kind of ties into the kind of attitudes or the kind of level Zverev has been playing in more important matches of late, and
I think he needs a new coach. I think he needs a voice. Like, I know he's tried with Ferrer, he's tried with Ferrero as well, but I think he needs to find a coach that can maybe work with his personality. I don't know obviously what he's like, but clearly if it's not worked out with 2 so-called super coaches in the past, I mean, he's got to find a balance that works for him because he can't keep playing matches like that. There's too many players that can just take advantage of his weaknesses. Yeah. And we know the talent he's got. That's the thing. It's painful to watch because you know how good his serve can be. You know how good his backhand is technically. And even the forehand can be solid when it's on form. And he's a solid net player. Yeah. Decent doubles player. He should be doing better. He should be getting to the next level.
Okay, on a slower court, I suppose, see when he's on a fast court and, I just remember him playing Jockovich at the Olympics, the forehand was incredible, literally.
Yeah, but even on slower courts, I mean, he won the first Masters that he won was in Rome 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Mental 5 years ago against Novak, he beat him in straight sets in the final. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of people taken aback by how big his serve was when he first came to the tour, and all of a sudden, kind of realising that he's not as good as you might think on the follow-up shot. A lot of people have changed their return strategy against him.
If you look at the players he's beaten, Clay, I mean, he beat Team in 2018 Madrid when Team had beaten Rafa. He's beaten like the best clay court players of his sort of the time that he's been playing on the clay. He beat Nadal in Madrid last year as well. So we know.
But Madrid's a different beast, though. To be fair,
it's a different beast. But I mean, he has won Rome, which is your bog standard clay surface. But I think he needs to either get a new voice or.
Because his level at the French was really good. To be fair, Gab, you're quite right.
It was, pushed it past the 5.
Yeah. Again, I didn't think he deserved to win that. To be fair, but not by much. Like Tsitsipas was just a marginally better player. So if he can get to that sort of level again, he'd be doing quite well for himself. But yeah, yes, Tsitsipas did manage to come through. I'd like to talk about the next match Tsitsipas played against ADF in the final. What did you think? Good debut for ADF in a
It
final?
was. I mean, he went an early break up, didn't he? So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he did. He was 3-1 up, I think, in that first set. And I still thought in the back of my mind, Tsitsipas's level will go up. And it did go up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and he did start playing better tennis. And I thought, to be fair, I don't think ADF played badly. I think it was just a case of Tsitsipas upping the level and being a better player than ADF. It sounds a simplistic analysis, but that was what I took
No,
away.
yeah, his base level was definitely better than ADF's, and it took him very, very high level from the Spaniard basically to make it as close as it was in the
But
second
yeah, and
set,
he got it
definitely.
to the tiebreak. He was serving for it, Tsitsipas for a 6-3, 6-4 win, and ADF breaks him and took it to the tiebreak. So ADF played well, but at the end of the day, Tsitsipas dominated the tiebreak and fully deserved winner this week.
Yeah, I mean there was a moment actually that ADF had Tsitsipas a little bit worried, and I'm just trying to find out what the point was now. 15:30. Yeah, Tsitsipas. It was an extended rally, 9 shots. Tsitsipas had to force a error from ADF with a massive forehand about 9 shots into the rally. So that was at 15:30, 5-6. So obviously, if he'd won that point, a couple of set points, you don't know.
Don't know. Yeah.
Tsitsipas did come up with a couple of unreturnable serves, which obviously is the standout difference between the two players. Like Tsitsipas was actually winning 3 points off his serve this week, compared to a lot of other players. I mean, Zverev wasn't doing that. Hurkacz maybe was, but apart from those two players,
Not many others.
no, not many others at all. And to be fair, it's what Tsitsipas does with the follow-up shot, and his +1 was the best this week by far. He very rarely played a backhand on the +1 shot. He was always on top of the point. Like he was determined to get that forehand into play, and it made a massive difference. It just made him stand out like above every other player basically he played.
Absolutely.
First player that is under 34, so basically the big four, to defend a Masters or Grand Slam title.
Fair play. Yeah.
That's a massive deal. That is a huge deal.
It is a huge deal. He's very, very good clay court player. For me, I know Tsitsipas played really well this week, but I learned nothing new about Tsitsipas this week. You know how good a clay court player he is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting him to have a very good clay court season again. Maybe even win the French. His name's definitely at the top of the list or near the top of the list now.
Mm-hmm. I made a pretty bold. Well, see what you think about this first.
But
I made a pretty bold prediction in that if Tsitsipas were to play Djokovic again at the French, it would go Tsitsipas's way.
yeah, it depends how many matches Djokovic has had under his belt. I mean, if you put them both at Roland Garros now and say Novak doesn't play until Roland Garros, yeah, I think Tsitsipas wins it. But depends how many matches Djokovic gets under his belt. But I think he's definitely got a real chance of beating Novak for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the French, I wouldn't be surprised if he did it. But for me, for Tsitsipas this season, I'm looking to see how he does at Wimbledon. I'm looking to see how he does on the fast, hard courts. I know how good a clay court player he is. I think he can win Roland Garros. Wouldn't surprise me if he won his first Grand Slam at Roland Garros. I might even go as bold as to say I think he will do it. I think he certainly will have a great chance of doing it. But it's for me, how does he develop his game on the other surfaces? I was talking to my brother about this. If Tsitsipas gets a good chip return at Wimbledon with his net game, he's going to be a very good, tough player to stop on grass, but he needs to improve the slice and he needs to improve the return. Those are the two big areas.
It's basically like playing on a fast hard court nowadays, and I mean players like Medvedev, he doesn't even have to chip return it. That's the thing. So even if Tsitsipas does manage to improve his chip return, it wouldn't be the be all and end all to him becoming a Wimbledon champion sort of thing. I think there's better players at the moment than him with the amount of weaponry that, like say, Berrettini's got, the slice, the forehand, and the serve. I think there's just too many more complete players.
I'm looking for an improvement. I'm looking for an improvement there because we all know what he can do in the clay. I mean, he's top 3 clay court player in the world at least. I mean,
yeah, easily, definitely, certainly at the moment top 2.
The moment top 2, yeah.
Yeah, so exciting. He made me a Tsitsipas fan after hitting that dive volley, quite honestly. So I'm quite. But I was on the fence before.
I didn't some of the press conferences. I didn't like what he said after the Brooks Bay press conference. I'm a fan of his game. But
of course, yeah. You can't forget about that.
Press conferences, I think,
he can be a wee bit of a dick. That's true. So,
he can be, and these philosophical writings in the camera. I mean, it's like going back to philosophy class, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, one of them was like green parachute. I think he wrote green
what was it?
parachute.
Aspire to inspire before we expire. I was like, Stefanos, I should have got you to write my final English essay.
From the inspirational to the absurd, it's just like
it's just like I think he's a great player, but some of the press conferences, circumspect. I think it's probably polite to.
Yeah, fair it is. Yeah, let's not end on a bum note though. He played a really good tournament. Gav, thank you very much for joining me as always.
No, thank you.
Hope everybody enjoyed our recap of Monte Carlo. If you'd like to catch Gav's work, he will be doing some predictions.
Last word on tennis, yeah.
Yep, possibly in Barcelona.
Potentially, yeah. If I'm given the call,
maybe Belgrade.
Style, if they make the call, I will answer the call. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Stuttgart's on as well, of course, on the ladies' side. It's actually a stacked draw, so that'll be really good. If you want to catch any of my work, please go to ontheline.tennis.uk. Thank you very much for joining us as always. This has been the On the Line Tennis Podcast. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.